The barrier I built was only 4 feet tall, but it did its job. It wasn't meant to look nice. It was meant to give me the last bit of calm I had left. It kept out the stares, the gossip, and the overblown performances my neighbor put on for anyone who'd watch. She thought she had the authority to dictate everything in the neighborhood, from paint colors to personal freedoms. She stood by the fence one morning yelling for the police, thinking I was just some passive, harmless man. What she didn't know was that I'd been quietly preparing something far stronger than any fence. I had stacks of documentation, detailed legal records, and a background in law she never even suspected. My name is Richard Lane. I'm 52. I left behind a 25-year career in city legal work to buy a 5-acre property on the edge of Oak Ridge, a quiet rural town where I hoped to enjoy early retirement. But peace wasn't in the cards, not with Elaine Monroe in the picture. Elaine, 48, had been running Oak Ridge's Homeowners Association for the past 3 years. Everyone in the neighborhood knew her reputation. She found violations no one else would notice and handed out fines like flyers. She turned quiet suburban life into a rigid rulebook. I figured I could steer clear of all that drama by living at the edge of town, away from the rest of the homes. That assumption was wrong. It all started when I installed a basic fence around my property. The land runs alongside a small back road that many residents used as a shortcut. I didn't stop anyone from walking through. I just wanted to protect my garden and chickens. I'd had vandals let them out before, and someone even crushed half my tomato crop. The fence was nothing flashy, 4 feet tall, a simple gate, and I left it open during the day. Trouble began when Elaine showed up at my door, clutching a folder like she was holding court orders. "Mr. Lane," she said, all serious, "your fence breaks HOA rules. It's too close to the shared path. You've got 72 hours to take it down or face daily fines." I spent that night double-checking property lines, comparing my deed with county records. Sure enough, that road was inside my property lines, clear as day. So when she returned the next morning, I told her calmly, "This is private land. I'm within my rights." Her face went red. "That path has been used for over 20 years. You can't just shut out the whole neighborhood." Next thing I knew, she was outside every morning with a small group, holding up signs like "Protect Public Access" and "Stop Property Abuse." They blocked my driveway and called it a protest. When I asked them to step aside so I could leave, Elaine just smiled and said, "We're using our First Amendment rights." They kept calling the police, saying I was a threat. Officer Daniels came by 3 times that week, checked everything, and said I wasn't breaking any laws. He kindly asked the group to clear the driveway each time. But Elaine didn't stop there. She fired up a Facebook group called Save Oak Ridge from Land Grabbers, and it caught fire. Over 800 people from nearby communities joined in. She uploaded photos of me gardening with captions like, "This man is destroying Oak Ridge values," and did live streams from the edge of my land like I was some dangerous animal. Then she went after me financially. Elaine visited every business I used, feed stores, hardware shops, even my coffee spot. She told the owners I was a danger to the community and pushed a petition threatening boycotts if they kept serving me. One day, the local AG supplier called me and said, "Rich, I hate to do this, but I've got staff to think about. I can't risk losing half my customers." Soon, every shop I visited gave me the same look, part pity, part fear. She had weaponized the local economy against me. But the worst hit came at the next HOA meeting. Over 200 residents packed into the hall. Elaine had charts, photos, and even a slideshow. "Richard Lane," she declared, "is ignoring our traditions and lowering property values. We can't let one person disrupt what we built." She called for a vote to formally cut me off until I took down the fence. She even had ballots printed. I sat in the back, watching neighbors I'd helped or greeted vote against me. The result? 167 yes, 23 no, 10 abstained. She stood there, soaking in her victory. But what she didn't know was that the very next week, I'd be stepping in as the appointed legal mediator for a major lawsuit. A group of 47 homeowners from different HOA communities had filed a case against Oak Ridge's board, citing abuse of power. Elaine didn't realize that the man she was trying to isolate was now in charge of the legal review that would decide her future. The Monday after that humiliating meeting, I started digging. I spent the day at the county records office. I knew HOAs often stretch their authority, and I suspected Oak Ridge's was no exception. I was right. The bylaws Elaine waved around only applied to homes within Oak Ridge estates. My land was zoned agricultural and sat outside HOA control, and that so-called community path, never officially public. It was just a shortcut that previous landowners had allowed. No easement, no legal right-of-way. Her argument was built on air. Then something unexpected happened. Margaret Lee, the HOA treasurer, quietly approached me outside the courthouse. A quiet woman in her 60s. She'd always looked nervous at meetings. Now I knew why. She took me to a diner in the next town and laid it out. Elaine had spent over $47,000 of community money hiring lawyers to go after anyone who didn't agree with her. Playground upgrades? Delayed. Street lights? Unfunded. Margaret had records, bank statements, emails, receipts. And the emails between Elaine and the HOA's lawyer? Damning. Elaine was ordering creative interpretations of rules, asking them to make violation notices sound as intimidating as possible. It was a campaign of intimidation disguised as governance. Armed with all this, I waited. That Friday, Elaine came to film her usual video at my fence. I walked out calmly, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Monroe," I said, "let's settle this properly. I'll address it at the next HOA meeting." She smiled like she'd won. She had no clue that county officials and a judge would be attending. That meeting? It turned into a courtroom. Judge Rebecca Holland entered the room with two court clerks. "We're here for the hearing on Residence versus Oak Ridge HOA," she said. Elaine tried to brush it off. "This is a regular meeting." "No," the judge replied. "This is now a legal proceeding. Mr. Lane has been appointed as the court's legal arbitrator." The room froze. I stood up, gasps all around. The so-called problem farmer was actually a veteran attorney. One by one, I presented evidence. Land surveys, zoning maps, financial records. Margaret brought in her box of documents. Residents started murmuring, then shouting. "That's why the lights aren't fixed." She used our dues for lawsuits. Elaine tried to spin it. "This is all a setup," she shouted. But no one believed her anymore. The judge laid down the ruling. Elaine was removed from all HOA roles, required to pay back every dollar misused, and banned from holding any future positions. She walked out in silence, escorted by her husband, while the room watched. In the months that followed, everything changed. Elaine sold her house at a loss. Margaret was elected HOA president by a landslide. I helped rewrite the bylaws, for free, to ensure transparency and fairness. Colorful homes, personal gardens, and children's playsets popped up across Oak Ridge like they never had before. My property became a hub. The old path was renamed Lane Trail. I installed benches and signs explaining local plants and wildlife. I even started a Saturday farm school for kids. Parents came too, and it became a weekly gathering for the whole community. The businesses that had cut me off came around. Henderson's gave me a lifetime discount. The coffee shop turned into a mini library. Our story made the news. First local, then national. People from across the country reached out, sharing their own HOA horror stories. I started a legal consulting practice from my barn, helping folks take back control from overreaching associations. 1 year later, Oak Ridge was thriving. At our first Community Freedom Festival, families sang, kids performed, and Margaret gave a speech that hit home. We learned that power must be watched, and community is stronger when it includes everyone. As I stood near my garden that evening, I realized something. I had retired to find peace, but I found my real purpose helping others keep theirs. The fence that once divided us now marked the spot where we planted a shared community garden. The sign at its gate said it all. Grown by community, shared by community, protected by justice. Together, we didn't just fix a neighborhood. We built a stronger, freer community rooted in truth, fairness, and real unity.